For today's devotional, I want to read just a short section out of John chapter 13. It's a section where Jesus is having a conversation with his disciples, and verses 34 and 35 in particular is going to be my focus. Jesus says this to his disciples: "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." There's a lot of things that we would attribute to being signs that we are disciples of Jesus. That might be reading our Bibles or praying. It might be gathering on a Sunday morning. There's a lot of things that are activities that we associate with being a Christian. But it's funny that in this particular passage, Jesus really reduces it down to a very particular focus as to what it means to be a disciple of Jesus, to be somebody who is called a Christian, a little Christ, somebody who reflects the very character and nature of God back into the world. Now, Jesus, who came as the logic of creation, the Logos, the Word, the one whom all creation finds its being and its source. This is the one who came into creation and began to demonstrate the very life of God in the world. And the way that Jesus does that is not through demonstrations of power or saying this is my way or the highway, but Jesus goes all the way to the point of the cross. Jesus lays down his life. Jesus is like the seed that is buried in the ground, dead, and sprouts new life. Jesus is the one who gives and gives and gives up, empties himself. The word in the Greek is kenosis, empties, self-empties, so that all that is left is love. Jesus has demonstrated this for his disciples and demonstrated it to the world time and time again by being one who touches those who are untouchable and loves those who are deemed unlovable. And this includes the disciples as well. They are a ragtag band of misfits in many ways. Jesus has gathered these people that the world has sort of cast off. They are fishermen, they are zealots, they are people who are business people. They are unlikely candidates for being the followers of a rabbi. But Jesus has gathered them and taught them and called them into this peculiar way of becoming fishers of people. And in this kind of intimate moment where Jesus is preparing for his death, he is preparing to go to the cross. Time has slowed down, and Jesus begins to say particular things to the disciples to remind them what it means to be a follower of him. Here, he gives a new command, but it's not a new command. It's something that Jesus has said over and over again, and not only that, in the Hebrew scriptures, it's reminded that we are to be people who love one another. We are to be those who treat the neighbor and even the stranger as people who are family, as those who are loved and created by God. So this isn't necessarily a new command, but Jesus seems to be issuing it again and again and again, is this call to love one another. And then he qualifies what that love is to look like. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. Jesus, who takes up the towel in the basin and becomes a servant and washes the feet of the disciples, taking the lowliest position as a servant among them, calls them to do the same. As one who has broken bread with those who will betray him, Jesus calls to do the same. As one who has not only been crucified, but then also to have his disciples flee away from him, and then to come to them and speak peace to them and invite them back in. This is the way of Jesus. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. It's not easy, certainly, but this is the call that Jesus offers disciples time and time again, including us, that if we are to be disciples, those who are on the way with Jesus, then our lives should reflect this love, this deep love for one another. And then this becomes sort of an evangelistic piece. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Not necessarily because of right doctrine, although that can be an important thing, not necessarily because of meeting on a Sunday, although that's important, not because we read our Bibles, although that's important. Those things are good. But if they do not lead us to be a more loving people, then it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if we sing the songs with gusto. It doesn't matter if we have gathered together in worship and praise. If we don't love one another, all that is for naught. All of that is empty, clanging of cymbals. It is void of the depth of what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. Love is not only our source, but it is our way. And Jesus says this in John 14, I am the way, the truth, and the life, which is to say that love that bears flesh is the way to understand not only the world, but the way that we are to live in the world, a self-giving, self-emptying kind of love, a love that can be crucified because we don't fear death, a love that can be put to death, a love that can also go to the very depths, the very reaches, far reaches, to demonstrate for one another our love. And in doing so, we recognize that our love for neighbor is also connected with our love for God, and vice versa. Our love for God is connected with our love for neighbor. There is no division in this. In our particular culture, we have often reduced salvation and faith to these very hyper-individualistic kinds of realities, that faith is about me and what I believe, and that salvation is about me being saved. But really, in this Gospel of John, we see time and time again, and also in the other Gospels as well, that Jesus is not just simply concerned with our own individual salvation, but concerned with the salvation, the outworking of salvation for all of creation and for everyone. This is a communal salvation. This is something that we are brought into community, a family. And so time and time again, Jesus reminds us it's not just about you. It is not about you. Instead, it is about living out the life of love that God demonstrated in the person of Jesus, empowered through the Holy Spirit that continues to move in the world and demonstrate the very character and nature of God in this world. As we are a people that claim the name of Christ, may it be an exemplary way. May we be exhibits in some manner of the love of God made manifest in our world. God bless you all.